What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I've got a video of the new Google Pixel 4 XL, and today I'm going to talk about some of the new features and whether or not there's just been enough done this year to this device to make it a compelling option against some of the other offerings on the market, as well as Google's very own Pixel 3a and 3 XL. So I think you've all heard the saying, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and that's been the approach that Google has taken in the past few years, and that is evident again this year. And that's not a bad thing by any means. They've really focused in on some of the major features in user experience when it comes to software, as well as a great camera. And I think that's an approach that Google's really nailed in an industry where there's many different types of Android experiences, including Samsung with a very feature-heavy approach versus OnePlus, which is kind of in between, and Google going the very simplistic route. This Google Pixel 4 XL though does really come down to a few major features, including the display, the secondary camera with the first time Google's done a multi-camera setup, as well as some optimizations in software and the radar inclusion for the motion gestures. Other than that though, I wouldn't say there's any surprises in any major aspect, but here you've got a very clean looking phone that comes in 3 different colors, including black, white, and also an orange right here. So I think the biggest improvement for this year's phone is actually the display. You've got a 5.7 as well as a 6.3 inch option in a Full HD Plus and 6.3 inch Quad HD Plus configuration. I think the phone at 6.3 inches is still a very comfortable size, but I even find the 5.7 being one that I actually really enjoy. In the past couple years, Google has had some complaints in terms of the display quality and having some color issues, but with this OLED panel, I think it is one of the best on the market, hands down. The colors are very vibrant, the viewing angles are great, and most importantly, it is 90 Hz, which I think is the best part. Smartphones are just starting to come in 90 Hz and higher, and that is amazing to see, especially with the stock Android experience being very fast and snappy to start with. I think with the fast animations and fast refresh rate, it's just really hard to go back to something that isn't 90 Hz or higher. Google mentions that this is a top rated display on the market. Even though the ratings doesn't really mean anything, I will say that this is one of the best displays that I've seen, and I feel like it is a noticeable improvement from last year's display. The one thing that some people may not enjoy though is the size of the chin on the top. It is pretty big, and even though there's a lot of sensors and stuff that is packed underneath it, it doesn't really bother me that much, but there are phones nowadays that have over 95% screen to body ratio, which might look a little bit more attractive. This one's hardware design is just as simplistic and effective as a software experience, with just a glass back, which is very clean and flat with the Google logo on the bottom, as well as aluminum on the edges, which comes in black for all 3 colors. If you guys want to give it a nice clean look though, as well as a customized feel, a great product is a dbrand skin, which has many different colors and textures for you to pick from for your brand new Google Pixel 4 or any other phone. It can protect your device while keeping it nice and thin, so I'm going to drop a link to them down below. The next biggest change is the camera, and I think this is something that people were most excited about, but in some ways were also kind of disappointed. Google's been one of the best camera makers in the past couple years, with arguably the best photo quality on the market, even compared to the iPhone. I think the second that the iPhone came out, people were kind of looking forward to the Google Pixel 4 and seeing how this may actually one-up the iPhone very quickly. We've been waiting for a multi-camera setup from Google for many years now, and this right here has a 12.2 megapixel main camera with an f1.7 aperture, as well as a telephoto camera that comes in at a resolution of 16 megapixels. One thing that is missing though that a lot of people really enjoyed on other smartphones is an ultra-wide camera, and we saw Samsung do it as well as OnePlus and Apple finally, and for a flagship phone I think a lot of people were expecting an ultra-wide camera or even a 3-camera configuration with a triple setup on the back. The photos are obviously very sharp and nicely contrasted, and I feel like for an out-of-camera setup, if you don't plan to edit your photos, you're going to be impressed by the camera on the Pixel 4. The white balance is extremely accurate, it's also got very good HDR, and the night sight camera that was first introduced last year is still impressive and has also been improved on with the ability to do long exposure for like astrophotography. I think another thing that this phone does very well though is the portrait images. I took these photos in Times Square in a night situation, and I was genuinely impressed by it. With a dual camera setup, it is able to use a dual pixel sensor as well as both cameras, which ensures accurate separation from the foreground to the background, and right here you can see all the details are very well cut out despite many distractions in the back. When it comes to taking just great everyday photos though, this is one of the most reliable and well-performing cameras still on the market. When it comes to the secondary camera, this is a 2x setup, and from the photo samples you can see here, it does a great job in retaining detail, but even though 2x optical isn't anything crazy because we've seen 5x nowadays, what is impressive is a super res zoom. So if I go ahead and crop in right here into a photo, you can see it still retains a ton of detail through AI, and if you compare it to the iPhone side by side, it retains significantly more detail that you can notice here. From a video recording standpoint though, there is 4K 30 but no 4K 60, but the stabilization on this device is pretty good. Beyond that though, I think the other improvements in the Google Pixel 4 and 4 XL come in the software side of things. And I feel like that's becoming more evident in phones coming out in the past year because hardware is so far ahead, it is very advanced, that software and AI is really how you enhance the experience for the user, and I think that's a route that Google has done a very good job on. With any flagship phone on the market, and especially with stock Android devices, specs have never been the issue, and performance is also something that we haven't really talked about being a problem for many years now. This phone is easily one of the fastest on the market, some of the smoothest and most reliable Android experience that you're going to find, and you do expect that from a company like Google who runs Android. With the radar, you're able to do gestures in your device, including being able to wave to change songs, skip tracks, as well as snooze your alarm in the morning. The radar is able to detect your face when you're looking at your phone as well as when you approach it, and it turns on the screen automatically, making it effectively more of a smart experience. It allows your phone to almost be ready for you at all times, and I found that the gestures work amazingly well, and although gestures aren't anything new on phones, this is one that I feel like I might actually use because whenever gestures and stuff like that fail, I instantly just turn them off on any other device. The face unlock also works very good on this phone. It is extremely fast and perhaps a little bit too fast because some users have been reporting the fact that it can actually unlock your phone while your eyes are closed, which is a little bit of a problem, but I'm sure Google's going to fix that in a future software update. When it comes to the battery life, you've got about a 10% improvement in the size, and on the Google Pixel 4 XL, you've got a 3700 mAh battery, which is still pretty big, but I wish it was even a little bit larger because you do have to factor the 90Hz display, which isn't on at all times, but it does take up more power, as well as the gestures, if you want to use them, are going to be always active. I was able to easily get through an entire day on this phone, but nothing too far over that. But I do understand that Google has taken an approach to keep this phone nice and thin and light, by not adding a battery that is well over 4000 mAh, but it is just something that I possibly would have liked to seen. If you're coming from the Google Pixel 3 XL, you probably will find yourself getting around the same battery life as last year. So overall, now we've covered like the new features of this device being the display as well as the camera. What do I think of the Google Pixel 4 XL as well as the Pixel 4, and whether or not I think it is competitive or worth it in the market today? So if you look at the market right now, you've got phones that are over $1,000. You've also got some that start at $700, including the OnePlus 7 Pro as well as the iPhone 11. And I will say, if you compare the camera experience to the iPhone 11, you're getting a very similar quality level, but you do get an ultra-wide camera as opposed to a telephoto, so you kind of have to decide between the two for a phone under $1,000. But if you go ahead and compare it to something like the OnePlus 7 Pro, you've got a phone that has like a very good Android experience that is very much similar to stock Android, very simple, but you do have a triple camera setup in a situation where all three cameras are decent, but none of which are impressive to the point where they compare to something like the Google Pixel 4. This is simply the top 3 camera on the market and also the cleanest and most efficient Android experience as well as the smartest experience. But from a hardware standpoint, you're not going to get anything that is overly crazy, whether it is a 4000 mAh battery, a super large display, or a triple camera setup all in one for the money. The last thing to really consider though is whether or not the extra money of this device is worth getting over Google's very own Pixel 3a, which is an incredible value and perhaps one of the best value in a smartphone that I've seen in the past few years. Honestly, I would say for most consumers, with the money you're going to save, the Pixel 3a is kind of the better deal. But if you want a secondary camera or a multi-camera setup at all, then the Pixel 4 XL is an easy choice. The stock Android experience is super smooth, the display is impressive, and otherwise, I really don't have many complaints of this, but I also don't feel like Google's really taken any risks this year when it comes to having a bit of a wow factor in this device. If you guys want to learn more, go ahead and check that link down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.